All right, today I'm going to answer a common question, which is short detection on the motherboard, because it seems to confuse a lot of people. So the way that you would measure for a short is very simple. You're going to take your multimeter, and you can put it on resistance mode or diode mode. I prefer diode mode. You'll have to use your multimeter's manual to figure out how to get to resistance mode or diode mode. I'm not going to go that in detail. If you're going to figure out how to fix motherboards, you're going to have to learn how to read a multimeter manual. So this over here is diode mode. Can you hold that to the camera? I don't have a stand. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the red probe and put it on ground of this motherboard. I'm going to take the black probe and put it to the point where I want to see if there's a short. So red probe goes here, and black probe goes here. And as you can see, the number goes to 0. That means that there's a 0 voltage drop across the points. It doesn't have to be 0 to be a short. You can have a short circuit at 0.001, 0.005. Sometimes 0.080, it depends on that particular circuit. But you should compare it to a board that works if you're absolutely unsure. But just to be clear, if you have a short where it says 0.000, that is a dead short. So again, I use a screw hole in the motherboard. So let's just go over a screw hole over here on the microscope. So when I say screw hole, this over here counts. This over here counts as a screw hole. You can just put it to that. Now, what I want to do is I need to find out where the short circuit is. So what I'm doing is where I measured, I actually am attaching my power supply wire to that. So I take the positive wire of my power supply. So this is where PP bus G3 hot is supposed to be on this machine, on this side of the fuse. So I have a power wire going right over here. And then I take the ground of my power supply and attach it to the ground of the board. Now the whole idea behind this setup is that what I'm doing is I'm sending 12 volts using the power supply to where 12 volts is supposed to be on the board. Something on the board is sending that 12 volts to ground. Now, by attaching the ground of the power supply to the ground of the board and the positive of the power supply to the 12-volt rail of the board, what I'm doing is whatever component is shorted to ground is going to have that 12 volts sent through it. And because it's having that power sent through it, it's going to get really hot and it's going to burn. So what I'm doing right over here, let's see if you could tell me which component is shorted on the board. A lot of the times you'll be able to feel the component that's shorted, but sometimes if you can't feel it or you can't find it, you don't know where it is, what I do is I actually just put the board in a bunch of alcohol, 99% alcohol, and I use that to find the short. So let's see if you could tell me which one of my components is shorted on this motherboard. So what I'm going to do is I set this power supply here to no current limiting, and you can start it at 1 volt. I'm putting it up to 5 or 6, and as soon as you do that, you see that the liquid runs away, which gives me an idea that that's probably the component that's shorted. I'm actually going to keep the power supply on because it'll heat the component, which means it'll get removed faster since I didn't keep my hot air station on hot. So it's going to take a while for this to heat up. Let's also hope while touching those two capacitors that I don't shock myself since they're carrying a lot of power right now. Whoa. You see the little fireball? And as you can see, I know my short disappeared because when I look on the power supply, instead of delivering 10 amps, it's actually delivering 0 now, which means that my short is gone. So now I'm going to go over to a donor board and grab those two caps off of a donor board. This is Haswell. I need Ivy Bridge. Ivy Bridge. Now, I'm not going to plug this thing in just yet because I bathed it in alcohol, but we're going to dry it off, and after that, see if, since the short is away, if everything works and turns on. So let's just remove the wires.